So when you hear the word leadership, what comes to mind? Maybe a title, a corner office, somebody who's got it all figured out, everybody could go to and depend on. What if I told you leadership has nothing to do with any of that and everything to do with how well you know yourself? Welcome to Codeswitch Rebellion. This is the unfiltered podcast for Black women who are done shrinking, chasing perfection, and performing professionalism in their own business. I'm Melanie L. Denny, aka Melly D, personal branding consultant and the identity strategist. This is where we talk about what it really takes to build a personal brand rooted in who you are, not who you were conditioned to be. Round here, we have real, raw conversations about what it means to show up with integrity, authority, and bold authenticity so you can attract better clients and bigger opportunities. Let's get into it. I want you to be honest when you think about this. When someone calls you a leader, what's your first reaction? Do you own that shit? Or do you brush it off, laugh it off, divert the conversation, deflect? I feel like as Black women, when we are true leaders, we tend to minimize that and we don't own it. We don't want to claim that shit. We don't want to be like, I am the leader here. We like to say, we're all in this together, or, give it to someone else or give it to the team. And I want to talk about this today because it comes off as being humble. You want to have humility. I'm here to say maybe being humble is a part of conditioning. And it's keeping you from stepping fully into what you've already been doing and owning that shit. We spent this whole season talking about conditioning and code switching and shrinking and performing professionalism and authenticity and all of these things. But all of that shows up in leadership too. And you cannot lead from a place of performance. You cannot build trust hiding who you are. Leadership has to be rooted in identity. So think about it. Anyone that you follow, that you see as a leader, it's because you trust them, right? So how do you build that trust? You can only build trust by being honest. So people know what to expect from you. And they believe when you say you're going to do something. They believe in your vision. They believe the words coming out of your mouth. They see your actions and it all lines up. Well, when we are performing, we can't build that trust very well. Now, can we? So in this episode, I'm going to be breaking down 3 levels of leadership, what they are, how they show up, and how you can start owning that shit. The first type of leadership I want to talk about is self-leadership, right? So you have to trust yourself first. No one else is going to be able to trust you if you don't trust yourself first. Mark my word. Now, for me personally, when it came to this professional world, I used to have jobs and I used to up and leave them shits left and right. I had 17 different jobs from the time I was about 18 till about 25. Okay, not a very long time. And it was because I know who I was, right? I wasn't going to these jobs suffering through it and claiming it as a badge of honor because I sustained this bullshit and now I'm resilient and all this. No. I know who I was. I knew that freedom was my number one value. Even though back then I probably couldn't name it and say it like that, but I knew I needed to feel free. I knew I deserved to get paid. I knew I was smart as hell and I needed to be doing something that reflected my level of intelligence. I knew when bosses was bullshit. I knew when leadership didn't respect their people. I knew when it was a toxic environment, and I knew I wasn't here for none of that shit. You feel me? So I left every single time and I put myself first. And that is what self-leadership is all about. It's about making decisions for yourself, knowing yourself well enough to trust in those decisions, read the situation and act on it without waiting for somebody else to tell you or confirm how you feel. I didn't need nobody to tell me shit. I already knew what it was. And so I think that level of knowing myself and knowing who I was and knowing what I stood for really, really, really reflected how much I was able to lead myself, lead my own decisions, trust in my own decisions. I wasn't quitting and going home like, damn, should I have done that? It was like, boop, 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 next job, because hell no, right? There's a confidence that comes with that people also look at and buy into. When you're confident about how you move, that self leadership is the foundation of every other type of leadership, because you can't lead nobody else if you can't lead yourself. You can't make decisions for anybody else if you can't decide for yourself, right? So that goes right into the next type of leadership, which is people leadership. Because of who I was and how confident I was, I had a strong sense of self and people trusted me. There have been several scenarios where I was at jobs for more than a short time, and anyone that I had to lead, whether it be teams directly reporting to me or indirect teams like projects, everyone respected me. Did they all like me? I don't know. That ain't my business in real life. They knew and understood what I stood for. We communicated well. I was always straight up. And I was real. I was just a real person, a real leader who knew what I needed to do, and I could get them to do anything. And this was not just in professional settings. Even in college, I started a whole step team at a predominantly white school, and they all called me our fearless leader. Meanwhile, I was scared as shit sometimes because this was uncharted territory, right? I never knew how to navigate that for real. I was like 19, 20 years old. And it just goes to show like I could get them to do the things that they were scared to do because they trusted in me. Okay. And even as an entrepreneur, going into my business, my clients trusted me. They would say, oh, I have this question, or oh, I don't think so. And I would tell them, no, 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 no. I'm the expert. Not in so many words, but like, I am the expert. You just paid me money. I'm going to need you to listen to what I'm saying. And just showing it with that level of conviction was so powerful. Again, and I was able to influence people and get them to do things that they were typically scared about, nervous to do. And that's what happens when leadership is rooted in identity and not performance. Another example of me being able to lead was I started a group of resume writers who just came flocking. They absolutely loved me. And you know what I did? I was just being myself. I just told them what I went through. I shared stories with them about my experience in the resume writing business, and I gave them everything that I had to help them. I was real. I was authentic. I was transparent. I was being myself. I was not performing. I would have to say that was the most fun I've ever had in any business. I got a quick question for you. Do you keep attracting the wrong clients or no clients at all? Something's going wrong with your personal brand, boo. And that's okay, but before you can fix it, you gotta really know what's going on. You gotta assess and see what needs to be fixed so you can take the next best steps. If you're ready to get off that struggle bus and stop winging it, book a digital brand audit. This is a personalized deep dive on how you're showing up online. We dive into what's working, what's missing, and what's really holding you back from those opportunities and those clients that you know you deserve. Book your digital brand audit today. So if you're code switching, trying to show up like you're perfect, if you're performing and hiding parts of you and hiding who you really are, people can feel that shit. The people that report to you, the people that you lead in business, your clients, the people around you, and people are not going to truly follow you and respect you as a leader if they can't fully trust you, if they don't feel like they really can buy into what you're talking about and feed off of your confidence. It just doesn't work like that. And the third level of leadership is thought leadership. And this ties directly into industry leadership. You know, when I was a resume writer, I realized very quickly there was not a lot of Black writers at the top of the food chain. Everyone that was leading the industry had been there for 30 damn years. They were old as dirt and they were white. And I consciously said to myself, I'm going to change that. It has to be me. And I intentionally started to brand myself, to build my personal brand as an industry leading resume writer. How did I do that? I started joining the existing organizations in a leadership position. That was quick and easy. Boom shakalaka. They're all volunteer based. One I even had to get voted in, and I won. When I did that, I felt like a lot of other Black resume writers took notice and started saying, well, okay, Mel's there. Let me check it out, right? Because what we were looking for was representation. It was very, very, very little representation. And I, again, stepped up to say, it needs to be me. I'll be the representation. I will show up. I will go to these conferences. I will lead. I will speak. I will do all of these things so that they could see it's safe. Come on over. It's safe over here. And not only that, so once I did all of that, I said, you know what? I'm going to just start my own thing. And so that's when I started the Society of Elite Resume Writers. Grew that to about 300 resume writers who mostly looked like me. Yeah, I would say more than 90% were Black women. And I coached them on, growing the business. I coached them on branding themselves. I coached them on pricing. That was a humongous part of what I taught, was the pricing, because the biggest difference I saw from, the white resume writers and the Black resume writers was the price difference. And I ain't like that shit. I also coached them on writing resumes because I had won a couple of awards. I coached a few of them to go on to win the same award because those awards were also predominantly white. And here's the thing. One of the women who ran one of the other organizations saw what I was doing in my organization, my business model. She came to me and she said, hey, how is that working? And I told her, oh, yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. Da, 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 da. And she said, I'm going to try that. And she changed her business model for her resume organization. This is somebody who's been in the game like 30 damn years, right? Who I used to look at like, oh, you know what you're talking about. I admire you so much. Meanwhile, they admiring me. That blew my mind. I ain't gonna hold you. That blew my mind. And it just goes to show, when you decide to show up as a leader and when you recognize things need to be changed and you have the courage, the resources, the time, the energy to do so, #do it. Because you are one person and you can make a change. But you got to trust yourself to be the one to fix it. And be that leader that's going to have people take notice and follow. Again, none of this could have happened if I didn't have self-leadership, 1. If I didn't have people leadership, 2. That's the only way I could have industry thought leadership, 3. This is basically about making an impact on something that's bigger than you. So when you started your business, I'm sure you wanted to make an impact. You wanted to change something. You wanted to help somebody. If you have a service business, if you are a coach, if you're a consultant, if you are a speaker, if you're an expert of some sort, you are likely solving someone's problem. And if that's the case, it's bigger than just you. And I want you to know that, and I want you to do this work to be able to step into the leader that you are, the real leader. You are a leader. You don't have to perform. You don't have to put on an act. You don't have to try to be like someone else. If I would have came into the industry and said, oh, this is how y'all doing it. Okay, this is how we're going to do it. I would have made what impact? If I would have just said, oh, you know what? It's the status quo. I'm just going to do what y'all been doing and jump on the bandwagon. Nothing would have changed. All of those Black women resume writers that looked up to me and did what I told them to do because they trusted me as a leader, that hit their first 10K months, that won those awards, that got their work featured in these books, all of these people who branded themselves, who improved their messaging, who got more sales, who got more clients, all of those people I would have never, ever touched. So who are you going to touch with your leadership? Back to my original question, when you think of the word leadership, what do you think about? Do you think about the impact you've made? Do you think about the people that you've touched, the lives that you've changed? And when you think about being called a leader, do you think about how you lead yourself? How well are you leading you? That is the first consideration here. Are you making decisions as a leader based on what you actually value, or based on what you think is acceptable or normal or the status quo? Are you trusting that you can read a situation and make a decision, or are you waiting for someone else to validate that shit first? This has been another episode of the Codeswitch Rebellion, and remember, your identity is the strategy. Deuces. If this episode sparked something in you and you want to continue the conversation, join me over on Substack. I would love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. Till next time, y'all, remember, your identity is the strategy.